I think that a lot of people, turn on the news today, a lot of young people, and they hear people tell them, that every motivation of every politician on either side of the aisle is purely cynical, and that they are doing everything they do for their own self-interest, to either make money or to gain power and stuff like that, and it's everywhere. It's both parties, right? And I know that's a lie, and I know it's a lie because of the people I worked with over the last 8 years, and I know it's a lie because of the president I worked for. It was the night of the Correspondence Center speech, or the day before the Correspondence Center speech, and we had all the jokes done, and we walked into the Oval Office, and he said, I like all the jokes. There's one punchline that I really need you to change. I was like, what's the punchline? He's like, you have Osama bin Laden as the punchline. And I think it's like tired, like it's been used, like we could be funnier than Osama bin Laden. I was like, do you want another dictator? He's like, yeah, just like whoever. So I was like, what about Hosni Mubarak? And he's like, that's great. I love Hosni Mubarak. Let's do that. So I walked away not thinking much of it, and then the next day was the raid to kill bin Laden. And so that's why he had ordered me to change the line, and it was probably a smart move. So I think for the content, the speech that I'm most proud of is the Nobel speech that he delivered upon accepting the Nobel Prize in Oslo. That was a speech written in large part by the president. Also, Ben Rhodes writes a lot of our national security speeches, and then I help as well. And I'm proud of it because the president really put a lot of time and thought into that speech, so much so that he actually directed the research that we did into the speech, which he doesn't often do. And so at the very outset, like 2 months earlier, he said, I want you guys to, look at all kinds of philosophers, look at the works of Gandhi, look at King, look at various military generals. And so we really dug into the question of, he is the commander-in-chief in the middle of 2 wars, and he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize. So what does that mean? And he wanted to say something larger about what war and peace meant to human nature, and say something interesting about the human condition, which I think, by the end of a very harrowing process, which we almost didn't finish, he succeeded in doing. So that's one speech that I look back, and when I read it, I still think, this rings true. He did a good job here. So. And then on delivery, I think that the Iowa Jefferson Jackson dinner speech in 2007, it was the one speech that the president had to memorize, because usually he either has a prompter, or he speaks off the cuff himself, or he's reading something. But there's very few speeches where he memorizes them from beginning to end. And that one we needed to, because you only had 10 minutes to give that speech. All the other candidates in the Democratic primary were also giving speeches that night. And it was basically a contest to see who could give the best speech. And the president practiced for like 2 weeks. And sometimes, we would walk by his hotel room in this small, like Howard Johnson's near the Des Moines airport, and you could hear him practicing the speech to himself in the mirror. And it, it mattered, because he got into that room and he was the last one to go that night, delivered the speech, and knocked it out of the park. Is probably more West Wing. It's basically, the idea is to do a West Wing based on the perspective of the young people that signed up for the campaign and went out to Iowa and in New Hampshire and South Carolina. Because there's been a lot of political dramas where the president is the main focus, or the candidate's the main focus, and some of the senior leadership in these campaigns and in the White House. But I don't think we've had anything that really kind of delves into what our generation has experienced. And so it's not just about politics and campaigns, but the idea is to say something larger about what it's like growing up at this time in the 21st century, and what our generation has experienced. And so we'll see if we can nail that down, but it'll be fun.